Welcome to All Ears, the official podcast of the Cedar Rapids Kernels, presented by Miracle Ear. I'm your host and voice of the Kernels, Calvin Christoforo. On the podcast, you'll hear from past and present Cedar Rapids baseball influencers, including players, managers, executives, insiders, and more.
Cedar Rapids Kernels, let the good times roll.
Season number 5 of the Kernels All-Ear podcast is back. Baseball is just around the corner. Kernels opening day is tomorrow night in Wisconsin. Kernels home opening day is on Tuesday here at Veterans Memorial Stadium against Beloit. And we have a very special guest with us to kick off season number 5, the same man that kicked off season number 4, formerly the voice of the Fort Myers Mighty Muscles, and now part of the broadcast team on the radio side with the Minnesota Twins. John Vittas joins us from the Twin Cities. John, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Calvin. Thanks for having me.
Let us be the first, or not the first, hopefully the last so far in a long list of people to congratulate you on your move to the Twins radio team. Very exciting. We're very happy to hear you on the broadcast of some former Kernels now playing in the major leagues.
Thank you. Thank you. The last few weeks have been a whirlwind. We got up to the Twin Cities about a week ago now and did my first few games in the studio at Target Field. So it's a dream come true. And I really look forward to this season learning from the major league broadcasters up here in Minnesota.
And of course, we look forward to hearing you as well on the radio side of thing. But your expertise is again needed this year because the Kernels roster has been released. And a lot of the guys that played on your team last season down in Fort Myers are on it. And when I sent you the roster initially, your initial reaction was, wow, you guys are loaded. The Kernels team that features 9 of the Twins' top 30 prospects to begin the season, and a team that you seem to like.
Yeah, I say it every year, but it's true every year that this is such a stacked Kernels roster. The high A, double A levels always seem to be jam-packed with really promising prospects. The last couple of years, the Twins have been somewhere in the top third of baseball as one of the most talent-rich organizations, and a lot of those best prospects end up on the Cedar Rapids roster. So I am very excited to see how your season plays out in Cedar Rapids and watch these prospects continue to grow because there are some guys with very high ceilings on the Kernels roster.
Cedar Rapids, like I said, begins with 9 of the Twins' top 30 prospects, 3 former first-round picks on this Kernels roster, and 5 or so members of the 2024 draft class. And I guess we'll start there. You got a taste of him, we got a taste of him, but he's back in Cedar Rapids. That's Twins' first-round pick, Caleb Culpepper, from a season ago. He returns to Cedar Rapids after a really brief stint. Really brief stint with you, too. I'm sure it was a flash when he was doing stuff in Fort Myers. I guess we both saw him to end the year, but what do you think Culpepper's upside could be in 2025?
Oh, he could move fast. He's a really natural shortstop. I think he fits at that position really well. He's got sneaky power more than you would expect for a guy of his size. He's just a really good athlete that can play shortstop and good amount of power, can go to all fields. He's exactly what you want in a first-round pick. He's got a quiet confidence about him that I think is going to serve him well in the minor leagues. And not sure how long he'll be in Cedar Rapids, but I look forward to seeing what he can do at a full, over the course of a full season. And that's really the story for all these 2024 draft picks is, okay, now they're playing 130 or so games. How do they hold up over that stretch of time against the best level of competition they've ever seen? But I think Culpepper is equipped to have a really nice year.
You said he's a natural shortstop on a team with a room full of natural shortstops. You look up and down this Kernels roster and you kind of look at their online pages, shortstop, shortstop, shortstop. The Twins went 1-2 shortstops last season. They also took Kyle DeBarge in the first round, someone we did not see in Cedar Rapids last season, but he begins with the Kernels this year. Also, you look up and down this Kernels lineup, he's the shortest guy in the team, 5'9". But don't let that fool you. I mean, this guy, Kyle DeBarge, can really play.
Yeah, he's got a great bat, a lot of bat speed. He can, again, like Culpepper, can go to all fields, just a good polished approach. I think you're going to love DeBarge. Yeah, there is a logjam on the infield because you've got Culpepper, De Andrade, and DeBarge, who are all shortstops, and Winokur, who last year played mostly shortstop for the Muscles. He may end up in the outfield a little bit more, at least with all 4 of those guys on the roster. Once one gets bumped to Wichita, it might open things up a little bit. But DeBarge is fun. He's a good hard-nosed baseball player. I think the fans will love that about him. He played a lot of second base for the Muscles last year, so I think you'll probably, my guess is that you'll see more of DeBarge at second base and De Andrade at third base. But who knows? They'll probably move around. Some of them will DH a little bit. Obviously, there's plenty of opportunities to get them days off as well. And that infield is just going to be so fun to watch with guys with great range and great arms at all three of those spots.
You didn't even mention Rain Don Cone, who got a lot of starts at shortstop last season. That's five guys in this Kernels infield that can play shortstop. Who you did mention is Brandon Winokur, and he is one of the guys that I know I'm very excited to see. I know a lot of people around the Cedar Rapids community are really eager to see. 6'6", shortstop. You don't see that unless your name is Oneo Cruz or Ellie De La Cruz, who of course played in this league with the Dayton Dragons. But Winokur, just from an outside looking in, as someone that hasn't seen him play in person, just seems like a freakish athlete, especially for a kid that's just 20 years old.
Yeah, for those of you who like college football recruiting, when they list guys as ATHs, that's basically what Winokur is, because he doesn't really have a position quite yet, but he can play several positions. And that's what we saw him do for the Muscles. Primarily shortstop, a decent amount of center field, and then also a little bit of third base, and he can probably eventually play some corner outfield as well. So I'm not sure exactly where he'll slot in with your roster. It might depend on the guys around him, but just uber talented. 14 home runs and 23 stolen bases in less than 100 games for the Muscles last year, which in the Florida State League, those are shocking numbers. 14 homers is the most the franchise has had in like over 10 years. So he has big, big, big power. He got to it more and more as the season went along. He had 19 doubles and 3 triples as well, and hit 250, which is above the league average in the Florida State League for a teenager. So I think what impressed our fans and our media team over the course of a full season was his maturity. He's a fun-loving guy. The fans love him. He'll talk to anyone. He'll sign autographs. He's just a really likable person, and that served him well over the course of a long season because he always had a good attitude for that first minor league grind and because of that good attitude, I think got better as the year went along and obviously put in the work to get better as the year went along. So he's in a position to explode this year if all things go well for him and he's healthy. He also had some bad luck getting hit by pitches last year. He got nipped in the shoulder and elbow a few times, which cost
Ouch.
him some games along the way. If he's able to avoid those freak injuries like that, I mean, this could be a guy that bursts onto not just the Twins prospect radar, but Major League Baseball prospect radar going into next year.
And you mentioned it a little bit, and you and I know the story about the Florida State League, but 14 home runs is just a remarkable number in a pitcher-friendly league to begin with in terms of you're playing in major league spring training ballparks, and the air is so heavy down there with all the rain in the summer. Cedar Rapids, of course, is not going to be the warmest, but come June, the Midwest League turns from a pitcher's league to a hitter's league when the air gets a bit warmer, of course, here in CR. You mentioned Danny De Andrade and Rain Don Cone. They round out the Kernels infield alongside Billy Amick, who was a guy that really broke out his one season at Tennessee last season, took the Volunteers to the College World Series, hit a home run in the College World Series clinching game. Another guy that is part of this infield mix, more of a corner infielder, just going to see time at first base and third base, but another guy from the looks of it who could add a lot of upside offensively.
Yeah, I love Don Cone. He was one of our headliners the first couple weeks of the season last year for the Muscles. I think he profiles perfectly at third base. So it'll be interesting how they move DeBarge and De Andrade around because it's hard to find them in everyday position with Don Cone probably getting the bulk of the reps at third base. But Don Cone is big power. He's just a really good hitter. He has more contact than you might think for such a big guy. He's able to fight good pitches off and drive balls. He really impacts the baseball more than most A-ball hitters that you would see. So you'll enjoy him. He might end up in Wichita by the end of the year. He's just a really advanced hitter. And then Amick, same thing. I mean, he's an advanced bat. He'll play both first and third. He can play both of those positions very well. He may end up at first just by the shaping of the roster, the way it works out, but Amick can definitely play third as well. Yeah, polished hitter, big power. That infield is just got to be one of the best in minor league baseball. You'll enjoy both Amick and Doncone on the corners.
But like John said, you better get to the ballpark soon because I don't know how many games this entire infield is going to play in Cedar Rapids before one of them gets promoted here to Double A Wichita.
Cedar Rapids Kernels, let the good times roll. Hey, Kernels. Hey, Kernels.
Hearing is important to living life to the fullest. That's why inside every Miracle Ear store, you'll find better laughs at family barbecues. You'll find a better life is in store at Miracle Ear when you experience the Miracle Ear exclusive advantage. It starts with our free hearing assessment, plus innovative products that will fit your needs and budget. With free service and adjustments for life, call 319-243-7105 to schedule a free hearing evaluation and find a better life in store. Our local Miracle Ear team is proud to support the Cedar Rapids Kernels.
Group outings are a great way to unwind and enjoy a night out, and we invite you to reach out to our group sales staff and see all the options we have.
Everybody knows when you're at the game, the good times roll. Hey, Kernels, let the good times roll. Cedar Rapids Kernels, let the good times roll.
This is season number 5, episode number 1 of the Kernels All Ear podcast, presented by our friends over at Miracle Ear, here with John Vittas, the former voice of the Fort Myers Mighty Muscles, now part of the Twins radio team. You can catch him doing pregame and postgame hosting this entire season on Twins radio. That was the infield. The outfield has a couple of returners. Gabriel Gonzalez returns alongside Kyle Hess and Misael Urbina. But the two newcomers are 2 picks in last year's draft. The Twins took them back-to-back in the 4th round and the 5th round. Jaime Ferrer out of Florida State was the 4th round pick, and Caden Kendall was the 5th round pick, the former Anteater from UC Irvine. What should Kernels fans expect to see from those two?
Fans will love those guys. Very, very polished hitters. They don't swing and miss much at all. They go to all fields. I think the Twins got tremendous value with both Kendall and Ferrer, where they got them. I think rounds 5 and 6 or so. They're baseball players too. They're good athletes, well built, good flat swings. Like I said, they very rarely swing and miss. Good defenders on the corner as well. Kendall's a great athlete. He can run a little bit. He can really defend. Plays the game with his hair on fire, which we don't say much about minor leaguers. Usually they've got those big tools and they kind of settle into a long season. Kendall's one of those guys that you can just see being an impact player at the college level, and he'll continue to play well, I think, in high A. So you'll like those guys. Ferrer might have a little more upside on the bat side of things, but at your level, I think Kendall will be as impactful a guy as any on your team. So you'll like those guys. They, like I said, they play hard and they're gonna post up for you. And I think they're gonna produce. They'll steal some bases and they'll play really good defensive outfield.
Jaime Ferrer, too, played 1 inning at catcher for Fort Myers last season.
Yeah, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, you guys only have 2 true catchers on the roster. So Ferrer is kind of like a Morales that you had a couple years ago, where he'll play primarily corner outfield, but he'll catch some pens in the afternoons, and then he'll occasionally play a little catcher. I'm not sure how that experiment's going to go. The Twins have really experimented with some outfielders at catcher. You saw Ricardo Olivar last year. And so I think Ferrer will play into that category of a guy who will flirt with the catching position. They'll see how it goes, but ultimately probably will play more outfield. But I did see him with the catcher's gear on a good bit in spring training. So I'm sure they'll try it and see how it goes, but he at least gives them a little bit of flexibility, similar to Mickey Gasper in the major leagues right now. The Twins are technically carrying 2 catchers, but Gasper's like that emergency third guy. I think that'll be Ferrer for the Kernels.
And you mentioned Jefferson Morales. Talk about a guy who had a big spring, former Colonel for a few years, Midwest League champion in 2023, knocking on the door of joining you in the big club in the Twin Cities. We'll go to the catching room next. Just natural order of operations. Nate Baez last season returns after a great year with the Kernels last year. 83 games, 12 home runs, which was tied for the team lead with Rubel Cespedes, who has earned promotion, a much earned promotion to Double A Wichita. And Hadim Zhao joins the Kernels as the second catcher, or not the second catcher, as one of the 2 catchers. 3rd round pick last season, finished the year with you guys down in Fort Myers. What does Zhao bring to the table?
Zhao's one of the more interesting guys to get to know. His parents have a fascinating background. He's trying to become the first player of Senegalese descent to reach the majors. His dad is from Senegal. His mom is a highly accomplished academic. She's been a professor at several universities. I think she's written a lot of academic journals on like cultural sociology, things like that. So they have a really interesting background. Hadim was born in Hoboken, New Jersey, and then grew up on the West Coast. But he's an athlete. He's going to play, I think, mostly outfield again, kind of similar to Ferrer, but he can definitely catch. He's got a great arm, as you might expect. He can hit a good bit. He's got some power. So he's on the younger side for the draft class. So he's a guy that might stay in CR all year. You guys will get a really good look at him. But you can tell he's a thinker. He's a smart guy. He can definitely handle a pitching staff. So I think you're going to like Hadim Zhao complimenting Nate Baez behind the plate.
If you hear the noises behind me, it is getting ready. Opening week here at Veterans Memorial Stadium, getting set for the home opener next Tuesday. Opening day tomorrow night on Friday against Wisconsin on the road. Those are the leaf blowers. The lawn mowers are out in the field, making sure that looks ready to go next week when we welcome back fans to the ballpark on Tuesday against the Beloit Sky Cart. Those two guys, Baez and Zhao, going to handle this pitching staff for the Kernels, which is headlined by Charlie Soto, Twins' first-round pick in 2023. Just a young guy, youngest guy in the Kernels roster. Plug your ears, born in 2005. Charlie Soto, the right-hander, but boy, is this kid electric. I am really excited to see him work on the mound.
Yeah, you are going to love him. I did 9 years in the minors. He might be the most advanced pitcher in terms of stuff as a teenager that I've had in low A or high A. 94 to 98 with the fastball. 94 to 96 is when he's running it and cutting it. And then he can dial it up to 97, 98 if he wants to blow it by you. But he knows he's a smart guy. He knows that hitters nowadays can square up 95 on the regular. So he's a guy who can really speak that kind of baseball savant lingo. He understands all of the advanced metrics on pitching. So he fits right into the Twin system with what they're trying to teach. And so he's a guy who's happy to tinker with his arsenal. We've seen him use 5 different pitches with the muscles. And so just electric stuff. The one thing that the scouting reports undersold on him going into his first pro season was the changeup. I mean, it is an elite 60 grade changeup, if not better. Bottom just falls out of it. He disguises it well. It's 82 to 84. Really, really good pitch. So to go with kind of a cutter, a sweeper, two-seamer, and the changeup, it's a really good mix for Charlie Soto. He's just an electric pitcher. He's going to be dominant at that level. And the ERA was in the 4s for the Muscles. He had a few blow-up outings. As a teenager, you might expect that in your first pro season, but I think he's smoothed a lot of things out, and he should be able to hit the ground running in Cedar Rapids.
Yeah, and John said it. He might be some guy that does not hang around in Cedar Rapids long. Even talking to the coaching staff, hey, this guy might be on a fast track as he settles into his second professional season. But really fun to watch, hopefully, for the Kernels here to begin the year. You said the scouting report undersold his changeup. I think it undersold his height. Baseball Reference lists him at 6'3". He is not 6'3". He's closer to 6'5". Is Soto, again, born in 2005, the youngest guy in the Kernels opening day roster at just 19 years old. Another top 30 prospect in the Twins pitching staff is Jose Olivares, the right-handed pitcher, starter with the Muscles last year, going to be part of the Kernels starting rotation this year. What's the scouting report on Olivares?
He's a hard thrower, and he had to earn his opportunity in Cedar Rapids. He was with the Muscles each of the last 2 seasons, which is surprising for a guy with his kind of stuff, but he did have injury issues last year, which is probably what held him back from getting to the Kernels roster last year. He's actually very similar to Soto in terms of the stuff, which might surprise you. He doesn't have the changeup Soto does, but he does have the velocity and the power. He'll sit in the mid-90s, 94 to 97 for Jose Olivares. He's got a solid slider, and I think he can slow it down to a curveball too. So he's got multiple off speeds. He'll sprinkle in a changeup, but Olivares is all about power and velocity. He's a guy that can live in the zone and be okay because he is so overpowering and he's such a good athlete. And he's a guy that to me does have major league starting pitcher upside. I'm sure a lot of scouts will project him to end up in the bullpen because the off speeds aren't quite as polished as Charlie Soto, but he has usable off speeds at the high A level. So Olivares is a guy that might surprise some people because he's not a huge prospect, but his stuff will definitely stand out to you guys when you go through that rotation first time through.
Someone else I wanted to touch on in the pitching staff, which also includes a bunch of returners, including Iowa's own Ty Langenberg, the first Iowa Hawkeye to play for the Cedar Rapids Kernels since 1982, if you can believe that, John. Iowa and Cedar Rapids, University of Iowa, Cedar Rapids, about a half hour apart, but first Hawkeye to play for the Kernels or a Cedar Rapids organizational team since 1982 is back on the roster. Jeremy Lee, of course, who saw a lot of time. Spencer Bengard, who had, quite frankly, a remarkable season last season, one of the best pitching seasons in the entire Twin system. He is back in the Kernels rotation. And so the back end of the bullpen also returns Gabriel Yanez, who led the team in saves, and Jacob Wazinski. But a guy joining them in the bullpen is Wilker Reyes, who you saw a lot of last two seasons with you guys down in Fort Myers. It seems like he took a really big jump from 2023 to 2024.
He did. He took a really big jump. He's a guy that was kind of an afterthought for most of the last 2 years, just kind of a bullpen filler piece that had some potential, and he finally met that potential at times last year. The fastball velo jumped for him last year. He was mostly 87 to 90 2 years ago in 2023. Last year, he jumped to be more 89 to 93. I mean, he might have even touched some 94s last year, but he's a bigger bodied lefty, so he's got some power to his game now. He does run and cut the fastball. It's all about movement with Wilker. He can spin it though, so he's got like a slow curve to go with the sinker cutter mix. So he can be a really effective pitcher from the left side when he's throwing strikes. That's the other thing that cost him 2 years ago, not just the lack of velo, but sometimes struggling to throw strikes. He really did put that all together at the end of last year to earn this opportunity in high A. So he'll kind of slide in with Yanez and Perez as those strike throwing lefties that he can really use in any role. Like Reyes can give you 2 or 3 innings out of the bullpen, which is useful to have over the course of a long season. But he probably does have a little more upside and a little more stuff than Perez and Yanez.
Stay connected with the Cedar Rapids Kernels all year long by following the Kernels on social media. Catch up with the Kernels on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at CR Kernel.
We're wrapping things up here with John Vittas on Season 5, Episode number 1. We are back here on the Kernels All Year podcast. And before we let John go, we got to talk about our next guest coming on Season 5, Episode 2 of the Kernels All Year podcast. That is new Kernels manager Brian Meyer, who takes over for Cedar Rapids great Brian Dinkelman, the franchise in modern history all-time wins leader, finishing his Cedar Rapids career with 364 Ws. He is off to Double-A Wichita to manage a lot of former Kernels on the Wichita win surge. But Brian Meyer, who was the bench boss for the Fort Myers Mighty Muscles each of the past 4 seasons, has some big shoes to fill in Brian Dinkelman. But what should Kernels fans expect from the new manager, Brian Meyer?
Oh, Brian's the best. You guys are going to love him. Got 4 full years of managerial experience with the Muscles. He understands the game through and through. He's a hitting coach by nature. That's what he did at the college level for 15 years before getting hired by the Twins at 3 different Division I programs. But he has mastered the art of managing over the last 4 years in Fort Myers. He knows how to deal with the different personalities and the mental struggles that players go through at a young age in the minor leagues. He did a wonderful job dealing with our players and getting the most out of them and communicating with the organization and making sure everybody was on the same page, executing the player development plans while also having a great pulse on the community and the fan base and being available to media and to fans. And his family was around the ballpark a lot, which is great. Our fans and our employees felt a great connection to him and his family, and I know the Kernels fans will as well.
That's awesome. Looking forward to having Brian aboard here as the new manager for the Kernels in 2025. One last question before we let you go. We've talked a lot about everyone on this roster, really up and down. But if you had to give Kernels fans one thing to keep an eye on this season, what do you think that one thing to keep a look at would be this year?
It's got to be on the hitter side. That infield is going to be competitive. I mean, there's not a lot of position player groups in low A and high A where there's like natural attrition going on, where there's 6 or 7 potential major leaguers on one infield where like they're going to be fighting each other for playing time and then obviously fighting for promotions to double A. Like once an infield spot opens up on the Wichita roster, there's going to be some serious conversations in the Twins war room to decide who to promote. I think you'll probably see multiple guys go up at some point, but that infield is about as good as you'll ever see at the A-ball level.
If that's not a reason to come out to Veterans Memorial Stadium, potentially 6 or 7 major leaguers on the infield alone, I don't know what is. But that is all the time we have today on season number 5, episode number 1 of the Kernels Earlier podcast. John Vittas, thank you so much for joining us from the Twin Cities.
Thanks, Calvin. Have a great season.
Thanks, John. You as well. Looking forward to that and looking forward to season 5, episode 2 with Brian Meyer coming out soon.
Invisible Hearing Solutions for ultimate discretion. Miracle Ear is here to help, so you can find a personalized solution that fits your needs, lifestyle, and budget. Miracle Ear has over 70 years of expertise and over 1,500 stores nationwide. Make a sound decision. Call 1-800-MIRACLE now and book your free hearing evaluation.
Your local Miracle Ear team is proud to support your Cedar Rapids Kernels. Enjoy the game.